What's up, everybody, and welcome back to TarHeelIllustrated.com, or, of course, if you are watching on our fast-growing YouTube channel, even during the offseason, we're still going up. I'm THI staff writer Jacob Turner, and joining me, as he always does, our very own publisher, Andrew Jones. And AJ here for yet another episode of our UNC Basketball Lookahead Series. And if you clicked on this video, you obviously know who we're talking about, and that's senior forward Justin McCoy. Excited to dive into this one. For those who don't know, AJ put out a piece on Monday about Justin McCoy, another piece out on Wednesday about Justin McCoy, and this obviously coming out on Friday. We're doing that for all the returners at Carolina as well. So stay tuned. We've already done 3 so far. Leaky, RJ, and who's the other one? I'm blanking on the other one.
Leaky, RJ, and Puff.
Puff, there we go. We did Puff the following week before. I was going to say Caleb, but we have not done Caleb yet. And Puff
we do it weekly. We do, every player has their own week, but we actually took a break one week because we had so much content, so much stuff going on. I would be forcing it in there, it wouldn't fit. So I pushed out. We're also going to do Pete Nance at the end of this series, and then we're going to do the incoming freshman as well. So we're going to take this thing right up to the end of August. In fact, I think the last piece will run several days before the first football game. So that excites me. We're going to end up having at least 3 basketball items every week of the offseason.
Pretty amazing, man. It really is. We've got so much stuff going on right now. And that's a perfect segue in what I want to talk about before we talk about Justin McCoy, AJ. And that's TarHeelIllustrated.com. You see it written across up there, guys. Come join our awesome community, our awesome site. Just $8.33 a month. You can be a Carolina insider too. AJ took over this site in 2014. Our price hasn't changed a penny since then. It's still $8.33 a month. And guys, trust me, we're putting out as much content as we've ever put out. So if we wanted to go charge an extra $8, probably have an excuse to do so. We're not doing that, though. $8.33 a month. We're going to stick to that price. We're not going to change that, guys. So if you guys want to come join our awesome community, our boards are absolutely on fire right now with everything that's going on with the ACC rumors and shakeups. And you've also got some of the stuff rumors swirling around about Gigi Jackson as well. If you want to get more information about that, see what's really going on, you got to sign up. You got to be a premium member for just $8.33 a month at TarHeelIllustrated.com. Anything you want to add, AJ, about that plug?
Well, just, a lot of people have asked us, hey, why aren't you doing a podcast or writing articles about the ACC stuff right now in the future? Go on the board. I think I've had on fire 15 or 16 posts in that thread, and I have a fair amount of information about what the league is doing and what the league is looking to do, and you can only access that on the thread. I'm not going to write an article about it, and I'm keeping that in-house for right now. We're not going to do a podcast on it for a while because it's a very fluid situation. And to be honest with you, by the time we record a podcast, get edited and slot it to run on the site, stuff may have changed. So I do think some things are going to move. I do think some things are going to happen fairly quickly. I'm not going to tease what the news items are, but the ACC kickoff is in 2 weeks. And it would not surprise me if something comes out. I'm not going to tell you what it is or what it might be. Something comes out before then. You got to go on our site. And I'm not doing that to sell the site. It's just because that's how we're going to handle things right now. A lot of times that's how we do things. We're kind of subtle on the site, subtle on the boards. We just don't rush to put information out there unless, if we have 3 sources on something saying this is absolutely going to happen and they were the right sources, you'd probably see it on the front page. But we're not going to go there with this stuff because it's very tenuous. It's very fluid. There are lots of discussions that are going on that kind of touch a lot of different boxes. So that's sort of what I'm telling people on the boards and just answering a lot of questions about that, giving a little bit more clarity about the too many people in a boat theory, which is something I was told by somebody in the know. So you got to go to the boards to catch it.
Guys, if you want to know more about that, I'm going to say it one last time. You got to sign up for Tar Illustrated. You got to be a premium member. $8.33 a month. Link is in the description below. Go sign up. Join our awesome community where you can be a North Carolina insider too. Okay, AJ, enough of our shameless plugs on this podcast. We just filled them up with it right there. But you got to do it. You got to do it.
That was the worst. That was the most shameless and shameful. That's the most shameful I've ever been plugging our site.
Hey, man, the boards are truly on fire right now. I'm going to leave
my salesman buddies are going to be like, good job, AJ.
Yeah. Oh, they're loving eating that up.
Got to take a shower after that.
AJ, let's dive into Justin McCoy here. Looking at his stats from last season, played in 30 games, averaged 7.0 minutes per 1 point, 1.4 rebounds, 0.5 assists, shot 22.2% from the floor, 25% from three, and 80% from the charity stripe. So, Justin's obviously came in from Virginia, transferred in from Virginia after 2 seasons there. Probably, it kind of goes without saying, probably didn't play as much as he would have liked to last year. I know he did feature occasionally in the NCAA tournament, played 10 minutes against Baylor, but minutes after that were limited. 1 minute against St. Peter's, 1 minute against Duke, 2 minutes against Kansas. So not a guy that saw a ton of action. And there was games last year where Justin McCoy didn't come off the bench. And that was a theme with Hubert Davis, with a lot of his bench players. There was just some times where the Iron Five was going to stay in there and the bench guys weren't getting in. And that's just how Hubert Davis decided to roll. And it obviously ended up working out for him pretty well with their NCAA tournament run. But we're going to dive into kind of what McCoy's role could be, or we expect it to be on this year's team here in a little bit. But looking back on last year, AJ, what are your just kind of overall thoughts on the kind of year McCoy had? Because like I said, the chances in a lot of ways were pretty limited.
Well, there were some games he missed because he had COVID.
Yeah.
So he missed a trip to BC. And I think he also missed Notre Dame. That was that little stretch, 4-day stretch. And then I think he was injured, had an ankle injury or something, and missed a game or two. So let's carve a few. I still had some coach's decision, DNPs. I think the thing that I look at Justin McCoy is, of all the players on the team, I thought that he had a difficult time sort of finding his niche. And it's kind of interesting to say that with a guy who's a niche player, but he never really appeared super comfortable. I think there's a lot more to Justin McCoy's game than we saw. I watched him work out a lot. He's a highly skilled guy. Now, he doesn't have that spring step. He doesn't have that blow by you step. That's one of the reasons why, he was a number 150. I don't remember what his rating was, but he was a high 3-star.
Yeah.
Which is not usual for programs like Virginia and North Carolina, although they both went after him. He chose UVA over North Carolina because I think there are a lot of intangibles to his game. He's a skilled guy. He's very fundamentally sound, and he's someone that, or with the right kind of guys around him, can be very, very helpful to a team. So I think he kind of struggled in that last year. Maybe he thought certain elements of his game would flourish more, and there was some frustration that set in. Wouldn't surprise me. Human nature. You and I talk all the time. Human nature always finds its way to the basketball court, the football field, baseball diamond, whatever your sport is, human nature is ensconced in that sport. Okay. So in Justin McCoy's case, I think a lot of it was just battling whatever he had to battle through to find a comfort zone. I expect he'll find more of a comfort zone this year. He may not play a whole lot more, but I think that when he does play, he's going to be better because he's someone that can help at the 4 and the 5. He can back up at the 5, certainly. And as I said a lot when we talked about him last year, Tony Bennett trusted him play 11 minutes a game on a team that won the ACC regular season title 2 years ago. When Jay Huff got in foul trouble, or when they needed a little bit of a derriere kicker on the floor, some ruggedness, Tony Bennett would put Justin McCoy in the game. He trusted him to do that. So if he can do that for a UVA team that was the best in the ACC 2 years ago, then he can help North Carolina. I think what he is moving forward, Jacob, is a luxury. There are so many teams in the country that would like to have a guy like Justin McCoy coming off the bench. And he would probably play more for a lot of other teams. But for a club that's mission is going to be to win the national championship, to have a guy that played basically the last 10 minutes against Baylor in the second round, hit those 2 big free throws late, a guy that Hubert Davis inserted into the game in the national championship with 4.3 seconds left to set a screen. He's trusted in those scenarios, and he's going to be the 9th man? That is a luxury that North Carolina has. Those who are expecting Justin to pound the ball on the floor, drive baseline, dunk, and scream are people who are not being fair to Justin McCoy. It's not the kind of player he is. I do think he could be more productive, but the fact that he gives this team another little part off the bench that so many other clubs don't have, and this club has that. So I think because of that, he could be a very, very valuable member of the club, more so this year than last year, even though I think they're going to play more guys this year. He just never found that comfort zone last year, which is why he didn't play more than I thought he would have going into the season.
Do you one of the biggest criticisms of Hubert Davis last year, and I'm not saying it was valid or not valid, I'll let you form your own opinion on that for the people listening, but especially early on in the year, was the fact that, Hubert Davis at times against lesser opponents when Carolina was winning pretty heavily, didn't really put the bench in as soon as a lot of people would have liked to have seen him. He didn't rotate as much, especially early on. Now, as it dove into ACC play, I thought that criticism was less and less valid because it was, the games are more important. He found the guys he could trust and stick with. Other guys had opportunities and maybe just didn't take them. But I thought early in the year, in some ways, that criticism was valid because I thought there were opportunities. And I think that led to, for some players, and this is the question I'm going to pose at you, and I think Justin McCoy's included in this, I think that led to a little bit of lack of confidence in some ways because they weren't getting opportunities to go out there when they probably felt like they should, when game was in control, when the game was in hands of, when it wasn't like it was on the line anymore. You can trust to put a guy in who hasn't maybe played as much. You're not going to lose the game in that situation by doing that. Do you agree that, because for me, confidence seemed like an issue for a handful of players, and it seemed like it at times, especially in moments, that was an issue for Justin McCoy. Did you agree with that as someone who was at every single game? Do you think that was an issue?
Yeah, I think part of it was, but we're not going to do a Hubert Davis podcast here, but Hubert was trying to figure out what he had.
Yeah.
And remember when in January, after Garcia left and Anthony Harris was, they said, unavailable for the rest of the season, people were screaming and yelling about the bench minutes. And you and I did podcasts after the Virginia Tech game, after the BC game, saying, look, this is who they are.
Yeah.
I think Hubert recognizes that for them to make a run, it's this core that needs to be on the floor. So he was able to make that determination because of what he saw in the months prior. And if certain guys weren't getting it done in practice in November and December to warrant more playing time, and they weren't in January and February, well, okay, that we're not there all the time. And I think that the doubters that Hubert had, and a lot of this was around Justin McCoy and Dontrez Styles mostly, I think Hubert kind of won that discussion in the end. And especially considering the fact that other than a couple of flare-ups, Styles looked hesitant. McCoy always looked hesitant. If you're looking to see if a kid's lacking confidence, it's the hesitancy. Yeah. When they're hesitant on the floor, they're not confident. When they're instinctive on the floor, they're confident. I thought that Styles was more instinctive in March than he was earlier in the year. And I never thought that McCoy was all that instinctive, except I do think in the Baylor game defensively, he was part of some of the turnovers that they had. But go back and watch that game. He helped them win that game. Oh, yeah, he was absolutely really good defensively late. And that's what he is. And I think had he played more minutes, I think you would have seen him produce a little bit more, because that was one time I was right on the floor, right on the baseline, around the sideline for that game. That was probably the only time last year that I thought Justin McCoy has lost himself in the game. What you saw was the guy that Tony Bennett put on the floor last year or 2 years ago. So I think if you can put him in situations where he loses himself on the floor, even if it's for 4 or 5 minutes, then I think you're going to get more of that from Justin McCoy. And there's a ton of value there. I like to look at really good basketball teams that have depth is like great skylines. Mm-hmm. If you like, Raleigh has an okay skyline that's improved, it's okay, but it needs a lot of work. Mm-hmm. There's not enough filler. You can have 3 or 4 great buildings, 60-story buildings, but you got to have 35-story buildings, 28-story buildings, 22. You got to fill in the skyline to make it look majestic and great. Mm-hmm. And Justin McCoy is one of those fill-in skyline buildings that is necessary to have a great skyline. And I think that's necessary to have a national championship team, because you're going to have that moment in March where a guy bangs up an ankle, a guy's in foul trouble. The next thing you know, just like in Fort Worth, Justin McCoy's on the floor, and he's going to stay on the floor for a while. That's the luxury this team has. But I do think to get him to where he's confident late in the season, he's going to need to see a couple of extended runs earlier in the year in which he is successful, in which he's productive. Mm-hmm. And he's like, okay, I understand my role in this team. I understand my role in this locker room. Everybody knows what's expected of me. So that will increase cohesion on the floor when he steps on the floor. It'll lessen the hesitancy when he steps on the floor, and everything becomes more reactive and instinctive, and he flows better. When that's the case, he's going to get more minutes if the minutes are there, because he's going to be a more productive player. You don't want to put a guy on the floor and have an element of the game suddenly stagnate, because it throws everybody else off. And so I think getting McKoy confident, getting him to where he feels loose, will be really important for this team. Other guys are better. It might be more important if they're going to cut down the nets, but he is still important. He is a part of the equation. So if you're a part of the equation, and you should be part of the equation, then you want the most from that guy in his role. I think he can handle the role, and I think he's going to get an opportunity to master that role.
Yeah, definitely. And I think just having more confidence in what your role is, it seemed like you mentioned at times last year, I don't think Justin really knew what his role was on the team, because he was, some days he just didn't get in the game, and maybe probably should have, because Carolina was winning big. So I can understand that being an issue, because if you don't know your role and you're supposed to be a role player, your confidence is going to go down, and you're going to. And
you've got to play well. You got to play well to find a role.
Yeah, and you have to earn it
just
as well.
Because you're on the team,
given to you. Yeah.
Just because you're a scholarship guy on the team doesn't mean you have a designated role. Roles kind of form naturally over time.
Yeah.
This whole thing is very organic. And it wasn't people that are saying, well, Hubert used the bench. Guys, he was playing. Garcia averaged almost 21 minutes a game. Anthony Harris was averaging around 11 or 12. And that was before Puff came back. And you saw Puff in the NCAA tournament played 67 minutes. Mm-hmm. That's 11 minutes a game, 11 and a half minutes a game. So if nobody leaves, and if you have Puff and Harris and Garcia in the 6th, 7th, and 8th man, you have an 8-man rotation. Everybody's playing double-figure minutes. Nobody's asking if Hubert plays his bench. They were contracted during the season. And then they added a guy that they weren't sure early on was going to play much or at all, because they were kind of slow, going the slow process with Puff. So they did play guys. Players had opportunities to get on the floor. They got to be able to perform and get Hubert's trust. And you have to do it in practice. Then when you get in the game, you can't be hesitant. You got to get in the game and impact the game. Yeah. Certainly don't hurt things. Don't hurt things. You have a better chance getting on the floor. So a lot of this is organic. It happens naturally. And it's always based on what the player determines. Hubert says it all the time. People think it's coach speak. I can tell you with 100% certainty, it's not coach speak. It's the way things are done.
Yeah, absolutely. Let's hit on next year before we wrap this one up. We've already kind of hit on it a little bit, but I think my biggest question to you is, what is his role going to be? And I know that's kind of to be determined in a lot of ways, but the reason I'm posing that question is because nothing's really changed. You got Leaky Black coming back. You got Brady Manick leaving, but you got Pete Nance coming in, who's going to play a lot of minutes. And now you've got Puff Johnson, who kind of towards the later this season, I'll even throw Dontrez Styles in there, have kind of emerged as guys that Hubert Davis seems to be able to trust and put in big moments. So when I look at a guy like McKoy, I don't necessarily know where he fits in. Now, an improved Justin McCoy, a more confident Justin McCoy is going to play. But to me right now, it just seems like whatever his role may be is to be determined, because there's not a lot of guys opening in front of him. And we just don't really know what kind of Justin McCoy Carolina may get next season.
Well, I think it's safe to say that Puff and Dontrez probably have higher upsides in their games. So when they're all 28 years old, they'll probably be better than Justin McCoy, right? Mm-hmm. But that doesn't mean that Justin handling a role and being a guy who doesn't hurt the team when he gets on the floor, that doesn't mean that he's not going to maybe get some of those minutes, maybe get more minutes than Dontrez. Mm-hmm. Dontrez is a bouncy player. Maybe in the role that's carved out for Justin is get a guy on the floor who's going to make the right pass, make the right cut, someone who's going to talk a lot on defense, someone who's going to help out defensively. Justin's really good. If you watch, he's really good at playing off the ball. Like when his man doesn't have the ball, they're man defense, they're on this wing or something, the ball is over here. Justin's always perfect with where he is, the ball you man defense. Little things like that a lot of fans don't see are really, really important, especially when you're going to go to the bench. We're talking about that filler skyline. You could be a 25-story building in Manhattan, but be a really beautiful building and an important building, right? So that's kind of what I think that Justin can be. I'm not saying he's going to play more than those other guys, but I'm saying if he does, it might be that Hubert's looking for someone who's not going to hurt him, someone who's not going to negatively affect the other guys, and someone who's just going to go out there and be solid and sort of keep things together. I can see Justin McCoy being that guy. Now, he may not get more minutes than I think Puff's could be the sixth man. Play a lot of, I think Puff's could have games where he plays 26, 28 minutes, right? I don't think Justin's ever going to do that, but I do see scenarios where Justin's in the 8 to 12 minute range. And those are valuable 8 to 12 minutes. If your goal is to win a national title, you got to be really good. Carolina's had some really good players in the past in that 8 to 12 minute range on really, really good teams. And there are players that are remembered. And I think Justin can carve that out for himself.
Yeah, I do agree. I think what he brings defensively as well. I think I think he can be an even better defender than he's shown so far, especially coming from a program like Virginia, where, like you said, he did play a lot. I mean, before he came to Carolina the year before, averaged 11 minutes on a Virginia team, averaged 3.5 points, and shot 48% from the floor. So he's proven, at a high level ACC caliber team that he can do it. I think it's just about being more confident, understanding what his role is, and more importantly than that, when you get an opportunity, you got to take advantage, because if you don't, with how loaded Carolina is, you can find yourself getting further and further down the bench, and all of a sudden, you're not playing at all. So I think Justin McCoy's got the potential to be a big-time role player for the Tar Heels this year, but I think it's still to be determined exactly what his role is going to be, not only based on what Carolina's bringing back and has brought in, but what he's able to do in practice, preseason, and the beginning of the year when he gets those opportunities. So, yeah, go ahead.
One final thing. I'll just clarify this too, so people understand. He'll be happy with the role too. He wants to win.
Oh, yeah.
When they were on their runs, like you said, I was at every game. When they were on their runs, especially in the tournament, when they're in a run, the other team calls a timeout, first guy off the bench to greet him, Justin McCoy.
Great teammate. Yes,
so
seems like a great teammate. Yeah.
You have a guy who will embrace whatever the role is. If it's 6 minutes a game, then Justin McCoy is going to give them 6 minutes. Mm-hmm. And he's gonna battle in practice. He's going to cheer that team on. He's going to give him 6 minutes. I know we're glorifying a guy. People are going to say you're glorifying a guy who's like ninth on the rotation, whatever. No, he's an important part of the rotation. If he's ninth on the rotation and Hubert Davis says you're worthy enough being in a game and we're trying to win a national title, then he's an important player. They're all important players, but he's a very important player. So if you're going to have a guy that has that role, you want one who isn't laying in bed at night wondering why the coach isn't playing him. Okay, my job is to play 6 minutes a game. I'm going to go out there and kick derriere for 6 minutes a game, do the best job I possibly can to help this team win. That's the kind of kid he is, and that's the kind of guy that they're going to have next season.
Great way to end it up. Great way to wrap this one up, AJ. I've been Jacob Turner. He's been Andrew Jones in the Justin McCoy edition of our UNC Basketball Lookahead Series. Guys, again, if you want to see the ones we've already done on RJ Davis, Leaky Black, and Puff Johnson, go to our YouTube channel, click the playlist tab. You'll see Lookahead Series, and just go rifle through them and watch those. And also make sure you go check out the articles we put out this week, or AJ put out this week, on Justin McCoy on TarHeelIllustrated.com. One came out Monday, one came out Friday. And again, guys, last plug of the podcast, I promise, for just $8.33 a month, you can be a Carolina insider too. I'm going to say it one last time, AJ, because it's true. The boards are on fire right now. I'm telling you, I'm not making that up. If you guys want to come see what that means and what the heck's going on over here, get some insider information, you got to be a member. $8.33 a month. Prices haven't changed in over 8 years. I mean, what more could you ask for? So come join our awesome community. Link is in the description below. Like, share, subscribe, hit that notification bell as well, because we upload a ton of content even during the off season. If you want to be notified when every video goes up, you got to hit that notification bell as well. Appreciate you guys watching, and we'll see you in the next one.
Thanks.